Hey everybody, and thanks for tuning in to the Homesick Hogs podcast, a 2-episode series on homesickness, loneliness, and self-perception. Here we've got
Maya,
Abby, Kristin,
Lauren.
and Cooper.
Hi, my name is Kristin, and I'm one of the hosts, and this first episode of the podcast will be about homesickness and loneliness.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm also one of the hosts. I feel like us doing this podcast now, especially since we're underclassmen, we kind of have like an inside look on like what it's like to be homesick, especially since it's like our first semester at college. Some of us, at least I think most of us, are pretty far away from home. Like I'm 8 hours away, so it's been really rough. Just like I think that leading up to leaving home, I was really excited. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get out of the house, like I'm not gonna be with my parents, like I have no rules, like it's gonna be so great. And then I got here and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know nobody. Like I didn't come with my friends. I have no idea who my roommates like are. I met them through social media. Like I miss my family so bad. And I don't think that was something I prepared myself for. Like I literally made like, this is what I need for my dorm. This is what I need for classes. But I didn't like make a list like, this is what I need to not be homesick, you know? And I feel like that was like very difficult for me and probably a lot of y'all too.
I mean, yeah, nobody really like talks about it, like going into college. It's always like, you know, it's gonna be like such an eye-opening experience. Like you're gonna meet all these people and do all these things, and like, yeah, like preparing for college. Like, what do you need for college? But like, none of the adults in my life ever like told me like, oh, it's like you're gonna get homesick and it like might get pretty bad, but like, you know, here's this and this advice or whatever. It's like, it's not very talked about. It's not very talked about amongst my peers, I feel like, either. At least until now, which I feel like is what we're trying to do with this podcast, is kind of, I guess, destigmatize it in a way and just kind of like open up the floor to discussion about it, since it is such a common experience with, I mean, almost every student here and at every college.
I think it's embarrassing for some people to kind of admit that they're homesick, you know? And like I hadn't looked into it until we started doing this project, but I was looking for like sources and stuff, and I found that this like lady wrote a bunch of tips, and like one of them was like, you should just call home. And like I feel like that's so like, yeah, of course you should call home, like whatever, but like I feel like a lot of college students, you get like wrapped up into like, I need to go make new friends, make new experiences, and you kind of just like forget like, hey, maybe I should like check up on my family a little bit. And she was like, once you start getting into the like day-to-day routine, it'll become so much easier to like go and like talk to your family and like your parents, and like slowly you're gonna get less and less homesick. But I think that it's just like being in a whole new place is like scary, and nobody really wants to admit that, and nobody wants to talk about it, you know?
110%. I also think it's like such a universal thing for everyone to get homesickness. It's just it occurs at different times for people. You know, personally, one of my dear friends, he got homesick starting like a week into college. Like he was already talking about wishing he was home playing with our friends at the gym or calling home all the time, this and the other. He wishes he could go back for every weekend, things like that. I mean, it's such a universal thing, but for me personally, it took quite a while for me to really feel like the idea of, oh, you know, I kind of wish I was home for a little while, just because I not because I enjoyed college more than him or anything, but that's just the way my mind works. Is I was so hyper focused on being here that the thought of people being at home just didn't hit me, but eventually it did, and with all people it eventually will. It's more so about how you go about coping with it than anything else.
Yeah, me personally, I've definitely been very lonely, and I want to go back home and like see my family, but then when I get there, I want to go back to Fayetteville, and I think it's just because of like the constant like change in environment and like not being able to like get used to like doing one thing every day, because I'm not very good at attending all my classes every day. So like I don't have a routine. So it's very like difficult to like meet people, but also just like feel at ease in a way.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm from 20 minutes away, so it's harder for me to relate to these feelings. But
I do think it's really important to discuss this because, I read some stats before this, and there's a study at UCLA. It said 70% of students reported feeling homesick during their first year of college. And I think we're originally drawn to doing this podcast because we've all had shared experiences. But, like Lauren said, it is difficult to be really vulnerable and be like, hey, the person I was at home is kind of the person that I miss. And that's kind of something we'll get into the next episode. But you do just have to normalize and discuss these feelings from time to time and be like, okay, I'm homesick, but there's not much I can do about it. So one of the next steps is, figuring out, okay, what am I going to do to make a community and a home for myself here? So that brings me to one of my first questions for you guys. What are you guys doing here? What have you guys participated in that has kind of made Fayetteville feel like a home here?
I'm in Greek life, so I think that the sorority, it's I've heard a lot of people be like, oh yeah, you're paying jeez, you're paying for your friends. But honestly, I guess that makes sense. I'm paying to be a part of something, but I've also signed up for so many clubs, and a lot of them aren't free. For next semester, I signed up for this charged exercising thing, where you go out and you do a bunch of exercises with girls, and I'm maybe I'll make some new friends with that. And it's harder to make friends in class than it was in high school because it's so big. I walked in on my first day into an auditorium, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm screwed. Could you sit next to someone, you're like, oh, hi, my name's Lauren, how are you? And you think that this is gonna be my best friend in this class, and then the next day you walk in, where are they? They're not there. You have to make a new friend, and then it's all these friendships are just you literally just know their name, and then you started taking notes, sort of thing. It's hard to get something some substance there.
100%. I think the main thing for me is that I've made way more friends now than I did in high school, but they're way more surface level. Not saying that's a bad thing. I actually prefer it, honestly, not feeling like I have to jump in depth with people, and that we can just kind of enjoy each other's presence in a class or a club. But circling back to your first question, for me, I am not in Greek life. I've gotten involved in a lot of inter-hall Congress things, lead Hogs, groups like that have a lot to do with living on campus and government and things in that sort of order that are kind of concurrent with my degree. I'm thinking about joining the Traveler next semester, which is our school's newspaper for those who don't know. There's a lot of great people on that I've heard, and it's such a really unique experience to get to jump right into that. So for me, it's just finding things that I have interest in and just finding peers alongside that. I mean, I have people who I may have had one class with, but I see them more outside of class than I do in the class, but I wouldn't have ever met them had I not jumped into that particular interest or research area.
I'm on the newspaper, but I originally tried to get into the student government, ASG, and I made it through second round of interviews or whatever, and then they rejected me, and so then I was really upset, and I didn't want to do anything, but now looking back, I don't even think I want to be a part of that anyways, and I've definitely found people I enjoy spending time with on the newspaper. It's just definitely more surface level, and when we're together it's really fun, but we not rarely, but when we see each other we interact and stuff, but it's not just we don't know each other that well enough yet. So yeah, but I also think even with going back to the auditoriums and stuff like that, even in some of my smaller classes, it's just hard to make friends just because we don't see each other every day, and I don't know, I'm really so much of an out of sight out of mind person, and I don't, not as a mean thing, just I genuinely don't think about it, and so not definitely in high school I saw these people every single day for 3 classes straight, and that's why we were so close, and now when I get here it's a very big change.
I think friends are obviously a very big part of, connecting with your community and finding that community. But at the same time, it's also just, I think, realizing that community is there, which can come in very small things. For example, when I go to football games, I'll be in line and I'll chat it up with somebody next to me in line real quick, and we're not besties or anything. I never see them again, but it's just connecting with people that are doing what you're doing, and you're all there for the same reason. kind of just like starts to build that sense of community. And Trish Amison, a professor in the Department of Communication at the University of Arkansas, we interviewed her, and that was one of her main pieces of advice in like finding a community and kind of helping with that homesickness is just going out and getting involved in campus activities, one of which being sporting events. And she talked about how she did that when she was here, and she really enjoyed it. It's created a lot of fond memories for her, and I think even if you don't have a lot of close friends, or like if you don't have any friends at all on campus yet, like just going to things and like sharing an experience with the people around you is enough to kind of start creating a community.
I feel like one of the traits that is really crucial, as a freshman at least, is persistence, because the community the community here is so large that it's not guaranteed that you're going to get into everything. And so I looked into some different groups, and I actually got invited to join one, but it was by someone that I didn't really know, and it felt really impersonal. And so you kind of have to remind yourself from time to time that sometimes things don't work out, and you have to keep trying, because it will work out eventually. And so something that I would ask is, what would you say to someone who is feeling homesick or is definitely feeling lonely?
Well, the first thing I would say is that it is so normal, that it is so common and frequent, that they are 100,000% not alone on that in no way, shape, or form. Every single person, especially at this level, goes through it. Major thing for them, it's finding your way of coping about it. Whether for some people it is connecting back home, calling home, texting friends from back home, reaching out, playing video games with people from back home, etc. For some people, such as myself, it's actually kind of not necessarily disregarding it, but focusing on what's in front of me now, living in the now. So for me, whenever that happened to me, I would just go out with the friends that I had here, go grab dinner, go play intramural sports, something to that extent, just because it kind of reminded me that, yes, there were good things in the past that I may not be around anymore that I, in a way, yearn for. However, there are also great things in front of me, and if I'm so focused on what has happened, I will not be able to focus on what is the now.
I think that, like, what's important is reaching out to other people, because I think everyone their freshman year is a little homesick, like, very lonely. And, like, to be the person to, like, ask someone, like, do you want to go here? Like, they're going to be excited, because that's what you want from other people. Like, everybody wants someone to reach out to them, but sometimes you have to be the person that's like, let's go here, let's do this, let's make the plan.
Yeah, big advice for me is just break out of your comfort zone. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to go interview and start talking to people that are walking down the street. You don't have to reach out to every single person you know. However, icebreaker games. I shockingly found out one of the guys in my university, sort of my A-week group, that was our first week on campus before our classes started, and it was just kind of meant to socialize you and get you kind of adapted to the campus. And if you had questions, you got to ask a graduate assistant or a teacher or someone there about like classes, school, friends, any of that. He ended up living just 2 floors down from me and has almost identical interests to me. So, and we found that out through an icebreaker game, which I absolutely despise, and having to come up with a adjective or whatever the term is that rhymes with your name. It was so awkward, and we all hated that icebreaker. I prefer 2 truths and 1 lie. However, because I got out of my comfort zone and did it, he made a joke about it, and then I made a joke back about his, and so we just kind of started conversating, and then push comes to shove. Eventually, the dominoes fell that we found that out about each other. Then we started going to games together for sporting events and are now good friends now. So getting out of your comfort zone for some people is a huge step. Some it's a little step, but ultimately it's a great step that you should eventually take, especially when you have the opportunity to, because it will open a lot of doors for you. And I know it's easier said than done, but it is something I absolutely cannot stop preaching about.
Okay, so yeah, like going back to, getting out of your comfort zone, I feel like here it's really weird because it's not, in college it's not sitting in a chair for 8 hours and then, it's not like high school. And so you really have to be adamant about, I'm waking up at this time and I may not have another class for 5 hours. So establishing that routine and doing things that are, beneficial and productive is really difficult. And I've definitely had a lot of issues with that. But have Have you guys had any trouble establishing a routine or waking up or?
I have, because Monday, Wednesday, Friday I have an 8:30, and then Tuesday, Thursday, my next class is at 12:30. So I didn't have like a regular wake up time, which was like messing with my sleep schedule and like my mood, honestly, just because I would lay in bed longer than I typically would. So it was just kind of like, I don't know, my brain and my body didn't really know what to do. So I told myself I'm just gonna wake up at the same time every day, and on Tuesday, Thursday I'll just have, a few free hours to do whatever. And at first I didn't know what to do with that, and then I was like, I mean, I have homework, so I might as well go to the library and like do things, or I can go, meet one of my friends for lunch or coffee or something. And you kind of have to force yourself to do these things when they're not like directly given to you. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, actually.
Jeez. I used to get up so early for my classes in high school, and so I took 8 a.m.s for this, like, semester, and I was like, it'll be fine. And I feel like that's a mistake a lot of freshmen make, is like, oh yeah, I got up at, like, 4 a.m. to go to school in high school, and I'm gonna be fine, and everything like that. But now that I have these 8 a.m.s, it's like, there's, like, a lack of rules about, like, what time should I be in bed, like, what time, like, do I turn my phone off, all this stuff. Like, I had very strict parents, and they, like, had me put my phone downstairs at night so I could sleep. And, like, I didn't realize, like, that was actually, like, beneficial to me because I wouldn't be on it. But now I'm, like, up until, like, 3 a.m., like, and then I wake up for my 8 a.m. and I'm like, I'm not going today. Like, it's not. And then attendance isn't mandatory.
Exactly.
So it's like I'm not being penalized for not going. And I think that was, like, a big thing for, like, my schedule. It was, like, I couldn't get into a routine because I was, like, what's going to happen to me if I don't go, Yeah. Like, I'll get the notes from someone else. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And so, like, now I've, like, established, like, a little bit more of a schedule. Like, I've made some friends. Like, I know who I'm walking in class with, who I'm not walking in class with. But, like, definitely in the beginning of the semester with, like, all of these, like, new, like, you don't know anybody and there's no rules and, like, attendance isn't mandatory. You can do whatever you want. Like, it's hard to make a schedule when it's, like, nothing's really, like, forcing you to do stuff,
110%. An 8 a.m. in high school is like a 10 a.m. and 8 a.m. in college is like a 5:30 a.m. People don't realize once you get up here, it is so surreal how difficult it becomes to wake up in the morning for some of these classes, especially because of the fact that some of them aren't required attendance. I never skipped in high school, honestly. The idea of it just seemed weird to me, especially because I was already there, so I might as well go. But in college, you're not already there. In fact, it might be a 15-20 minute walk. So on top of all that, you have to do all this walking. So for me personally, I can see how it can become difficult. For me, I almost guilt tripped myself into going to all of my classes early. But I realized that ultimately the idea of taking all these 8 a.m.s just didn't work out. So next semester, all of my classes start at the latest at 9:30 a.m., which is fine because I can sleep in. Let's say I'm up till 1 a.m. Well, I can still get 8 hours of sleep at 9. Until 9, and then all of my classes are within 2 minutes of walking distance from my building, so they're super duper close, so it makes it so much easier to get up in the mornings and just kind of roll out of bed and then go to these classes rather than feel like I have to go through a whole ritual in the morning just to get there.
Yeah, I'm actually still struggling with that because since I usually don't go to any of my morning classes, I sleep until, I don't know, let's say like 11 a.m. and then I'm still tired and I'm like, well, so I go back to sleep and then I don't wake up until 5 or 6 p.m. and I've slept my whole day away, and then I get really upset with myself, and then I like bargain with myself. Basically, I'm like, okay, well, I skipped one class today, so like tomorrow I have to go to like my early class, and like it works, but like at the same time, like it is so stupid, and like I constantly am missing things, or like missing like calls from my friends and like my parents just because I'm literally asleep, and it's so embarrassing. But like at the same time, like I genuinely like don't know what I would be doing if I wasn't asleep. Like, yeah, I just like don't have any energy to like do anything else, and it's like it really sucks. Yeah.
No, yeah, I totally agree, because I mean, homesickness is just like one of the feelings I've had at college, because I mean, everyone tells you like, oh, it's gonna be the greatest years of your life, and then like all of these like shitty feelings come out of nowhere, and so you kind of just have to like deal with them. And so like for me, like I've had like an insane amount of guilt for like when I skip a class, like throughout the day. It's like, well, I'm here for an education and I'm not even going to classes. Like that makes me feel like really bad about myself. And I don't know, it's just, it is really difficult to, you know, I don't know, like make these feelings practical and think about like, well, today's just a day, because it's just such a different atmosphere than in college or than in high school, where, you know, every day was basically the same, you know. And so no, I definitely feel the same way about that, and it's really easy to sleep the entire day away.
Yeah, and like self-discipline is also something nobody really told me about. I mean, my parents had mentioned it when they talked about like other college students, and they told me like, oh, you're fine, like you've always been good at like, you know, keeping yourself on track and doing what you need to do. And like, yeah, I am at this, but like at the same time, it's like every single one of my days is completely up to me now. Like, I don't have a job right now, so I don't have that obligation. You know, attendance isn't mandatory, so I don't necessarily have that obligation. Like, I'm making my own schedule every single day, and it's not always the easiest thing, and I don't think a lot of people prepare for that or like know of that. Or like, I mean, I was never advised on it. Nobody really told me that like you're gonna have to, you know, schedule your own time, and it might be difficult, but like, I don't know, it is an obstacle. But I also think I would say that's just as common as homesickness. Because coming in as freshmen, nobody really knows how to live by themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just a new experience.
Or even like you don't know how to live by yourself, but you don't know how to live like in close quarters with other people.
Yeah.
Because like I came from like a very big family, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna be fine. Like I'm used to like my sister's coming in my space. I've shared a bathroom before, whatever. And I got lucky because like I'm in Maple West, so I have my own like ensuite bathroom like connected to my dorm. But I'm also sharing a room with a girl I've known for like 2 months, starting like the beginning of school year. And so we've like had to navigate like our own schedules with each other. And I think that like is also weird if like you don't get along with your roommates, then it just makes you feel even more lonely, you know. And like you see them like doing other things with their friends, and like I feel like that can just be like, oh, like I'm not doing something right. Like you see all these people like around you like with other people, and if like you don't have like a good friend group and your roommate does, you're like, wow, like I'm doing something wrong. But it's like that's not the case, you know.
Yeah. I definitely feel like there's like I wouldn't say a stigma. I don't know. I just an unsaid feeling that there's a right way to do college. And I think a lot of people feel like they're doing it wrong. and there's no, like, I mean, there's people who are 50 years old and come back to college. So there's no right way to do college.
I think a lot of it comes from, like, you know, representation in the media. Because half the time the only, versions of college that you see are, like, you know, insane parties and, like, people going out all the time, doing all of this stuff. And it's not always like that. Like, I came in as a freshman, and, like, a week, that's kind of what I did with my friends, because there was nothing else to do. And, like, the first, like, month or two, like, you know, I would see somebody that I saw the night, or, like, the past weekend, and, you know, she talked about, oh, she went to this party, and she went to this other party, and she did this and that, and I was like, sorry, we lost some footage there, but, as I was saying, she would talk about how she went to all these parties, and, you know, I was hanging out in my dorm on Friday, calling my boyfriend, or hanging out with my roommate, or, you know, just, like, sitting on my phone, which made me feel really guilty about my college experience. I would feel like I wasn't living up to the expectations that I've been given, like, through my parents, or through movies or TV shows, but you have to give yourself time to just, like, not do anything, because that's just as important. And at the very end, it's whatever you enjoy doing is what's gonna make the college experience, like, a worthwhile and you know, a great memory. Yeah.
You mentioned movies, and like, if I'm being honest, when I got to college, I was ready for my 2004 coming of age, clueless, Legally Blonde lifestyle. Like, I was gonna be a sorority girl. I was gonna be living my life, turning heads, you know, walking around in my, like, Lululemon that my mom bought me like 3 years ago, but I was going to turn heads with it, you know? But then I'm like sitting in my room on a Friday night doing homework, and I'm like, this is not what, you know, what happened in Clueless. Like, she would be out partying, and I like made myself feel guilty for that. I'm like, I'm not getting this like college experience that like everyone else is getting, where they're going out to like Pike or Lambda, and like I'm looking at people's Snapchat stories, and I'm like, this sucks. Like, I'm in here doing homework on a Friday night, like, and they're out partying with their friends. Like, I'm not doing it right. But I think that like is such a big stereotype, is like how to do college right. But if you're doing something that makes you happy, then you're doing college right for you, and you shouldn't feel guilty about that. Like, everybody has their own way of doing college. There's no right or wrong way. It's just whatever makes you the happiest, you know?
Yeah, seriously, since I've gotten to college, honestly, I've spent way more time inside and alone. Not necessarily lonely, but alone or digitally or something or the other that has made me feel more connected than forcing myself to be out. Doesn't mean that I'm not still an extrovert. It just means that I'm not forcing myself to be out all the time, which is contrary to the way most people think at college. But it's really helped me a lot, especially as a procrastinator. Being closer to my homework has honestly helped me. So, and that's made me a lot happier because it makes me less stressed because I get it done. There in return, it works. I feel well, like there's a weight off of my shoulders on the weekends where I can truly sit back, kick back, and relax.
You don't need to be with someone 24 hours out of the day to be like not lonely, you know? Like, I think people get alone and lonely very confused. It's okay to be sitting in your dorm hanging out on your own. Like, you don't have to be sitting there like chatting it up with your roommate, or like out getting coffee with someone new, or like introducing yourself to every single like Bob, Joe, and Sally that walk by you in class. Like, it's okay to be alone as long as you're happy with what you're doing. Like, if you are lonely and you want to change that, like, that's great. Like, you should go out and you should go introduce yourself, and you should like how Cooper was talking about, put yourself like in a new situation, like get out of your comfort zone. But like, you don't have to. And I think that a lot of people like feel like they have to go do stuff, but it's like, no one's forcing you to. No one's going to be mad at you. It's your life, and you should live it how you want to, and not how other people want you to.
Yeah, me personally, like, one of my big love languages is like spending time together. And so like, not even doing anything, like literally, like I will just go sit in my roommate's room while she watches TV, and I literally just sit there, like that's it. And to me, like, that means a lot more than just like me being by myself, and it like makes me feel like at ease. Like, even if like she's not there, or like I don't have anyone to hang out with, like literally like going to the library, just being surrounded by people, like makes me feel like better. Like, I like it's just like, and also like knowing that people are going through the same thing. Like, obviously everyone like has like feelings of loneliness and homesickness, but I feel like it's really awkward to talk about, and then like when you do talk about it, it's kind of just like now what? Like, what are you supposed to do about it? Like, I feel like you can't really like cure it, or like there's things you can do to help it, but I feel like talking about it is like probably the easiest way to like combat it, cuz like it eventually goes away. Yeah, I don't really know where I was going with that, but
That's okay. I don't know. We'll probably touch on this more in the second episode, but at the same time, like on the other side of the spectrum, I feel like there's warnings that aren't said, and you know, where we're saying like there's no need to always be out with people, but in the same breath, there's always going to be people who want to be your best friend in like a few seconds, and I feel like you have to be really wary of those people, because you are going to have bad experiences. I think these may be the best years of your life, and they also may be the worst. You could have some really horrible experiences here, and so, you know, sometimes I feel homesick, and after like reflection, I realize that it's not necessarily my parents or the legitimate home that I'm missing. It's, you know, that sense of security and like knowing how things are going to go, and necessarily who I am, that I miss. And so when someone is really quick to be your best friend, you kind of have to remember, like, what am I actually looking for in a friend? And, like, what do I actually want to do with my time? Because, like Lauren said, your time and your life is your own.
For my sorority, her advice to me was, like, I was like, how do you think it's, like, your, like, advice for a freshman, like, how do you think it's, like, easiest to make friends? And she was like, just don't say no a lot. Like, you should limit the amount of time you say no to going and doing stuff. And, like, so for the first month, I was like, every time someone asked me to do something with them, I was like, yeah, of course. And, like, that's great to make friends, but you should also, like, it's okay to, like, skip out on, like, one or two things. Like, I know everybody has, like, a little bit of FOMO, but, like, at the same time, like, not every single thing that someone offers up to you is going to be, like, your cup of tea. Like, it's okay to say no to certain things, and, like, you shouldn't give someone, like, the expectation of, like, she's going to say yes to whatever I say, sort of thing, And so I got more comfortable, like, with my friends being like, no, I'm not really into going and doing this, like, but, like, you should still say yes to a lot of the opportunities, like, given to you, because you can always try out new things, but don't feel the pressure to, like, go out and do every single new opportunity given to you and sign up for every single club, because, like, you're going to stretch yourself thin,
110%, and it is okay.
You said that every time.
Yeah,
I know.
literally.
Well, I say that as like a way to second something.
I feel like I'm just, like, so hot right now, like, getting all, like, the points.
Right.
Every time I hand you the mic, he's like 110%.
Anyways, well, I also think it is important, right, to be able to say no, like you said. I know that there was a large group drama that occurred within 3 weeks of being at school with some friends I know, and
Sorry. Large group drama.
yeah, seriously, there was.
He is living his clueless
Well, there was.
It is. Oh my gosh. I feel like I'm, like, getting the inside scoop on
Right.
Cooper, the
Well-
2004 drama.
Anyways, and so I identified it early on that there was a person in the group who that was their intention, was to create drama, something to talk about. That was their sole intention. And so when the group would hang out, I ultimately said no and was in a way almost outcasted for it at times.
It became, like, the out group.
Yeah, and the group fell apart. The group.
Will you explain what?
Yeah, would you expand on that
Yeah,
for us
sorry.
a little bit? Anchor.
Whatever. I mean, whoever wants to explain it, like.
It's essentially just being like the other, like you said, like the outcast, and
The new
Not-
perspective.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me personally, I found out later on that the group ended up crumbling and falling apart because people started getting very hateful towards one another, and their entire relationship was built upon the fact that somebody disliked somebody else in the group, and there was always some form of drama within them. So looking at the group that we have now, there are still survivors, I guess, from the group that flocked over. I don't know what other term to use for it, but to be able to identify things that just don't bring you joy and to be able to say, no, I don't want to do that. I personally am not a big party guy. I don't like the large sounds, the noise, the lights, all that. Not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's overstimulating and just not for me.
Yeah.
So being able to say no to things that don't bring you joy and say yes to things that do, huge life lesson to learn.
Yeah, I 110%. Cooper.
I knew it was coming.
I mean, I learned the hard way that I didn't like parties. I went to a few, and the party itself was not a bad experience. I just realized it wasn't my kind of environment. And going back to the whole guilt thing, like I felt guilty when my friend group was like, hey, we're going to this party. Y'all should come to me and my roommate. And I was like, I'm going to stay here if that's cool. And my roommate totally respected that, but, I still felt that guilt. And I mean, I've gotten over it now because I'm learning to, respect myself and my own wishes. And, if I want to say no to this party, that's fine. And, my friends will respect that. And if your friends don't respect that, at the very least, you need to respect that so that you're enjoying the experience you have here.
I don't know, just to bring it back to the home and the family, I would never, let any air of this get to my mom. You know what I mean? Like, she would kill me, say I'm going straight to hell if I ever drank, which I don't. But, but I digress. I do think that parents implementing, chores and rules and like just expectations is really defining for how you spend your time, who you become. And I think that's a part of, you know, being homesick. And I think even though it definitely did limit a lot of things that I did, you know, up until I went to college, I turned 18, I do think it's also liberating to an extent, because they're kind of setting up the path for who you're going to become. And so when you leave that environment, it's like, well, now I get to decide. You know, it's like, who am I now? And so I just think that's a really fantastic opportunity, and I definitely miss it, even though, you know, I live 20 minutes away. Even I'm not in the house anymore, so I don't have that anymore. But what's something from your family that you guys not necessarily miss, but wish you had more of in different relationships?
Probably like just knowing that someone's always gonna be there. And I kind of have that relationship with my roommate. Like, I always know that she's gonna be there, and she always knows that I'm gonna be there. Because I really took my parents for granted. Like, first of all, having to eat meals every day is like such a struggle for me, and I don't know why, but it's such a struggle. And like yeah, like I just like can't get myself to eat more than like 2 meals a day, just because, like, first of all, I'm lazy and I don't want to go over there, and second of all, the food is trash. It's literally so bad, and like I feel shit like eating it. So like I don't want to like so yeah. And then like another thing I really just miss is like having my pets, because they truly are like it's like little therapy, and I just miss being able to like snuggle with my cat and petting it. I really miss him.
No, I absolutely feel that. The other day, I was walking to class and I saw a squirrel, and I was like, I want to pet that squirrel. I think I miss petting animals. Like I didn't. I rarely pet my dog when I was home, but she was always there when I needed her. And going back to what Kristin said about eating, I also have a hard time eating here on campus, just because it is such a chore, and it's always a social event. Like, as a freshman, I eat on campus. You know, I go to the dining halls and I go to the union to eat, and there's always so many people there. And I think what I miss about being home is being able to eat with like one other person, and like not have to worry about other people like looking at me, or just like being around, or like even eating by myself, like in the kitchen. And I think when it comes to long distance relationships, in a way you can start to find that, or like kind of create it. Like, I'm in a long distance relationship with my boyfriend. He lives back home, and you know, sometimes when I don't want to like eat with all these people around me or something, I'll go pick something up and I'll come back and I'll eat dinner with him over the phone. And that's something that I did with my mom once. We both she went to go get coffee and I went to go get coffee, and then we had our coffees like from a distance. You know, she was home, we were on the phone. But you know, creating those shared experiences can kind of help with homesickness. I feel like I personally like doing that when I'm feeling homesick.
I feel like when you talk about long distance, a lot of people go straight to like the romantic relationships, but like what not everybody realizes is like every single one of us is in a long distance relationship right now, family wise and like friend wise. And so I was like, my boyfriend's back home, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna be in a long distance relationship with my boyfriend, like that's so crazy. But what I didn't think about was like, I'm gonna be in a long distance relationship with my family and my sister, who like was my best friend. And it's like, you have to learn how to like navigate. And so when I'm walking to class, I'll get on the phone with my mom or something. You have to find these like little things that'll help you with like communicating like in long distance. I feel like communication long distance is like a lot harder than a lot of people like say it is, but like with all this new technology, we have so many different ways. I don't have to write a postcard every single month to my mom to be like, here's how college is 8 hours away. I can like call her up on the phone and be like, Mom, let me tell you about this like cool rock I found, and she'll like listen to me, you know. It's like, it's gotten a lot easier, but at the same time it's hard to navigate it if you're like, especially like being the first child to move away, like 8 hours. My sister's not that far from home, so she was able to come home like on weekends. But like I'm even one of the lucky ones because I can go standby because my dad's a pilot, which means like it's just easier for me to get a flight home. But like being 8 hours away, like I get to see them on holidays, and that's kind of it. And coming from like seeing my family every single day, it's been a little difficult, and I feel like a lot of people don't realize like there's a way, like every single one of us is in a long distance relationship with our family, and like it's okay to talk about it. Like I feel like everyone's kind of embarrassed to be like, I really miss my mom. But like we all kind of miss our moms, you know?
Okay, yes, I also miss my mom on occasion. But to kind of wrap it up and go back to what we were talking about, some tips that we had for incoming freshmen for when you're homesick, just to establish a routine, force yourself to go to things and kind of get out of your comfort zone.
But be okay with saying no if you really don't want to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, just take all these tips and like make your own home, like make your own community here.
And that takes time. It's not always like an immediate thing. You're gonna want it to happen immediately, and it doesn't always happen. It truly does take time. As slow as it may feel, it will happen.
And there's no right way to do college. Whatever makes you happy is right for you.
Absolutely. So I think we'll close it up there.